have yet another big victory to talk about. This one is a lot bigger than I think a lot of you maybe are feeling as Michigan fans, but nationally, they're looking at it in a much different way. That's right, we are in person for today's X's and O's. Over here in real life is Jake Butt, the Mackey Award winning tight end. I am Isaiah Hole. We are here to break down Michigan's 21-17 win over the Penn State Nittany Lions. Jake, I was there. It was an incredible experience. Michigan did something that we don't necessarily see that often, which is end up being down late against a tough team, and then they come back and they didn't fold. They got victory. What are your thoughts about how this Michigan team kind of galvanized in the big moment when it really absolutely needed to?
Yeah, well, it was a huge game. Like you just said, down late, big game. I know they weren't ranked in the college football playoffs, but the AP poll, I believe, or the coaches poll, they were ranked. You know, a lot of things that traditionally would have led to a Michigan loss, but Michigan won. And I think a lot of people that have frustration from the fan base or, you know, just outside of the program don't understand how hard it is to win in the game of football. It's hard when things even go right, but it's really hard when you're facing adversity, especially on the road, which I would say Penn State's one of the toughest places to play. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to finding a way to win. And you can go back to the Michigan State game, a lot of our frustrations where we found a way to lose. So to me, this was a step in the right direction. Again, it's been the passion that these guys have been showing all year long. They just found a way to come together and win when it mattered most. And that's exciting, of course, to come out and, you know, come out with a W.
Yeah, I mean, and that was the important thing to see, that they found a way to do it. I mean, how happy were you to see that a tight end was the guy that had that 50? Like, it's funny because I didn't look at the stat sheet to see exactly what it was. Some people were saying, oh, 52 yards, some were 48. I feel like some have downplayed it. I was on the radio twice yesterday, and they're like, yeah, like a 38-yarder. And it's like, no, it was midfield.
Yeah.
But how happy were you to see a tight end be the one to get that crossing route and being able to take it to the house?
Of course. I was super excited. And, you know, that's a play we ran a lot in my career. We used to call it Y Hurricane, where if you notice, you had three receivers backside, Eric all front side, and the three came in all running crossing patterns, and Eric's running shallow. Well, the two Penn State defenders collided and left Eric wide open, and he did the rest. He caught the ball, turned on the burners, and made a huge play when we needed it most. So I know I'm not alone in this. I was super nervous. I was sweating. I was watching the game. I was down in Auburn visiting Patrick Kugler and a bunch of my friends. We actually had the game on our phone, YouTube TV, watching it down to the wire. So that is a critical play. And you know, who's your guy that's going to make a play in the big moments? If you go back to Michigan State, Eric made some huge plays when we needed it most. Now Penn State, we turned to him again when we needed him most. So I'm looking forward to him. I know he was banged up a little bit with the ankle, but as we finish down the stretch, I'm looking at Eric all in the third downs, fourth downs, and the big plays when we need somebody to go out there and get it and make something happen. Feed the big fella.
Now, staying with the offense, there's a couple more components to that offense that was really working for this Michigan team. I want to give big credit to Cade McNamara and what he was able to do. I think he answered a lot of questions. I know there's still people out there, some stragglers that aren't on board, some that are just still, well, he didn't play that good. I mean, 19 for 29, 200-something yards against a very tough defense. I mean, no, he is not the best quarterback in the conference per se. He's not prolific, but he gets the job done, and he certainly made some big throws in this game, particularly not only the Eric All pass, but also the two touchdowns to Roman Wilson, which were both absolutely perfect throws.
Yep.
So what are you seeing from Cade?
It's what we've been saying really this whole year, and I think now as we've gotten later into the season, the people that are doubting him and you know, calling for change are becoming a little bit more quiet. They're definitely an outlier now. I don't know how you could watch that game and watch what Cade's been doing these past couple of weeks and leave with much criticism at all. Cade continues to show leadership. When you talk to the guys in the locker room, they're like, hey, what do we have this year? We have leadership. We have known guys that we're going to go to war with. Cade is one of the, if not the first name that comes up. So you got to be excited about that. He is the heartbeat of your offense. He is the one that really pilots everybody and drives them down the field. And okay, what Cade's really impressing me with is, yes, he's making throws, but what's next level is you're not waiting for a guy to get open. You're throwing him open. There's anticipation. And then on top of that, the accuracy. That throw to Roman Wilson in the end zone. An absolute dime. It was one high coverage. If he leads him too far in, he's dead and he wouldn't make the catch. He's got a defender outside. If he leads him too far out, it's batted down. He threw it on-time laser rope right down the stretch, touchdown, and that's what he's been doing all season.
And that's actually something that Roman said after the game. As I asked him, I said, could you tell me about Cade and what, how good he was for you? And he mentioned that exact same thing, not in that great detail, of course, but he mentioned that he was getting out of his cut and he turned to look for the ball. It was already in the air. Didn't have to wait for it, just knew it was coming. Really incredible performance on that light. Now, to stay with the offense again, I mean, Hassan Haskins. Yes. I mean, you knew that was coming. You knew we were going to talk about Hassan Haskins. 144 yards, I believe. No touchdowns for once, but I mean, to me, the biggest play was the one that really put the dagger in Penn State. Penn State knew that he was going to get the ball because Michigan needed to run the timeout. They needed to get the first down, and if they were able to do that, they were going to get victory formation. Seeing a mixture of running in between the tackles, we saw a little bit more of that zone actions, more of that stretch action that we hadn't seen all year until the Indiana game. How good is Hassan from what you saw, as well as how pivotal could that extra element of the run game be, knowing that Michigan can do the stretch play, can do outside zone, all of that they hadn't done? Yeah,
well, I just want to touch on something because we need to get to Hassan. I'm glad we're talking about this, but closing out the game, there was a number of times in my career and a number of times in recent years where we had an opportunity, all we need is a first down and you win the game. And we would go 3 and out. I remember 2015 and 2016 against Michigan State. We had the opportunity, if we get one first down, the clock runs out and it's game over. Both times we fell short. That wasn't the only time that happened where we're giving the ball back to another team. So that's the advantage of having a guy like Hassan Haskins, where you can feel confident about turning around and handing the ball off, and that he's going to, get the ball and make something out of it. And, a lot of those plays were beautifully blocked, really, really well executed by the O-line and the tight ends. But his vision and his ability to set up different blocks and hit the hole downhill, and then, of course, to run through arm tackles. No one is bringing him down by themselves or with an arm tackle. He continues to excel at that. But not just the run game. He had a great game catching the ball as well. I think you said 144 yards on the ground. He actually had over 200 yards of total offense between
catches as well,
which is critical because you have to. If you're just able to be in there and run the ball, it can be a little bit easy. Now he can pass catch. He's catching passes out of the backfield. I don't know if you saw the clip going around Twitter of his pass blocking.
The decleater.
Absolutely. He's really, to have a running back to go in there and just give a rib shot to the defensive ends. It makes the O-line's job and the tight end's job so much easier. He seems to be the full package. I don't really necessarily hear much hype about him on a national sense, but I think he's deserving of that at this point. He continues to show up and produce week in and week out. You love watching him play.
Yeah, pretty incredible that Hassan Haskins had the type of game he did, especially with Blake Corum being out. We'll see when Blake returns. It's sounding like at least one more week. You have fingers crossed that still, regardless of how Hassan's playing, that Blake will be able to be back for the big one against Ohio State. Looking at the other side of the ball, you look at the Michigan defense versus the Penn State offense. The first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is the pass rush. But before we even get into that, was it just me, or was Penn State, after the first initial part of the first series, because they had the fake punt, they converted, it seemed like Penn State threw the entire offense at Michigan because they were really well aware that, hey, we're really not going to be able to win this one straight up. I knew that they thought that immediately because of the fake punt, the fake field goal attempt. It seemed pretty evident that James Franklin was like, we're not going to be able to just line up against these guys and beat them. We're just not going to. But how much was the Penn State offense kind of set up in this particular game, and it felt like it was an in-game audible to me, to stress the Michigan defense?
I thought this was one of our most complete games from the defensive side of the ball. To only give up 14 points throughout the game, for them to play stout. They showed up in the biggest moments. Late in the game where Penn State was down in the red zone, we run a zero blitz. Coach McDonald dialed it up, and we hit it home. We hit it on the run. We had a massive shot on the quarterback. The ball went sailing out of the back of the end zone. So, you know, again, this is what we talked about is Michigan's defense has been great 90% of the time, but there's been a couple instances in each game throughout the season where you've just wondered what happened. You know, we got lazy with our eyes or assignment, and we've gotten burned. I felt this Michigan defense really took a step forward in this week, and actually in the biggest moments turned it up a notch. So total package, like you said, it starts with the pass rushers up front, David Ojabo, Aiden Hutchinson, you know, first duo in a very, very long time. Maybe the only in school history to have double-digit sacks, correct?
I'm not sure, but that sounds about right.
They're both pushing for the single season sack record. So, you know, to have one guy is great. To have two guys is really, really, you just don't have that. So those guys are able to terrorize quarterbacks in the backfield this week. I mean, it looked like just rib shot after rib shot after rib shot. I mean, O-linemen are picking him up off the ground, and he's wincing, you know. He didn't feel comfortable in the pocket. So it starts with those guys. But honestly, the total package, I think the defense really took a step forward this week.
The fact that it was only 38% of the dropbacks were pressured is actually kind of amazing, because that's when things started to change and look better for Penn State, is that they tried to find ways to get rid of the ball quickly. But that first series, Michigan really set the tone. 3 straight pressures, 3 straight, well, it was 2 sacks, but I mean, it didn't seem like there was going to be any shot for Penn State to be able to do anything against that duo. When you mention how good this duo is and the fact that they both have 10 sacks, which I thought I was going out on a limb before the season when I said Aiden Hutchinson was going to have 10 sacks. We have 2 games left in the regular season. I think if he got 10 sacks, I wasn't even including the postseason. I'm sure in my prediction, if he got there in the postseason, I would have been like, see, I told you. But nonetheless, they're both there. 3 sacks for Aiden, 2 for Ojabo. Then you've got others getting in the mix, and Junior Colson and Michael Barrett. I mean, it's just, it's incredible to see what they're suddenly able to do on that front. How much faith does that give you going into not the Maryland game? I mean, I think the Maryland game is going to give you a little bit of a preview against a top-notch passing offense, but looking forward to Ohio State, how much do you think maybe that could play a little bit of a factor?
Listen, you know, we're allowed to look forward to look ahead in the media, but, you know, we got to handle business for Maryland, but we fully expect that to happen. Now, when it comes to the Ohio State game, they've actually struggled to really get the run game going. It's definitely not their strength this year. And you've seen C.J. Stroud drop back, and he's throwing the ball 50, 60 times a game. How do you make them pay for that? Well, you take shot after shot after shot, and you make him think twice when he's sitting there in the pocket. You know, as a quarterback, when you go to throw, you're extended, your ribs are exposed. A couple full speed shots from either direction, you're going to be second guessing. You're going to be short arming the throw or sailing the ball downfield. So it's such a luxury to have these 2 guys that can really terrorize offensive lines. And, you know, it's a mind game too. It's a mind game. Football is so much about confidence to the point where you flirt with cockiness. When you're consistently getting beat play after play, your confidence is going to drop quite a bit. And, you know, you'll be looking around for help. And, you know, at some point you're going to have Ohio State has a good tight end. They might have to consider keeping their tight ends in, keeping their running backs in to try to double team these guys. So that means we're going to have numbers on the back end. So it's all part of a bigger picture. But these guys are playing such good football. They're definitely the foundation of our defense. Now,
you mentioned the having the one-on-ones in the back end, which makes it's scary. I'm not going to lie. It is scary thinking about those receivers, even against this improved Michigan secondary. But we do have to at least address the fact that they were able to slow down Jahan Dotson. They were like, we're not going to let him beat us. Parker Washington had a big game for Penn State, but Jahan Dotson, he had a lot of catches, not nearly as many yards as he's used to having. How much better do you feel like these corners in particular, because we've talked about the safeties, how much better do you feel about these corners? DJ Turner, obviously still filling in for Jamon Green, but also Vincent Gray, really in the hip pocket. I mean, they alternated on Dotson. Both of them really in the hip pocket.
Yeah, I think they played a really good game. Once again, they took a big step forward. And what you have with Coach McDonald on defense is you're not a one-size-fits-all. You're not consistently just man. You're not consistently just single high zone. You're not consistently just 2 high zone. You're switching it up. So you have to have an ability and an understanding of the entire defense to play within the scheme. You have to know, hey, if I'm outside leverage, that's because my safety's inside and I got help there. So I'm not going to, bite on certain double moves. I'm going to play within the entire scheme. And I think that's what these guys have. Now they're a little bit older. They have a little bit more experience. We're late in the season. They seem to take a big step forward mentally. Their skill is great. Their skill is perfectly capable of making plays. But what really allows you to succeed and take your game to the next level is understanding the scheme of the entire defense. Then you know where your help is. You know that guy's got your back. You can jump on certain routes. You can come up and make plays. So you look at Dotson, a lot of his routes were underneath. That's because we understand the routes behind him. We're not going to get above the big shot. We'll let them catch the ball underneath, and then they're coming up and tackling. And I think our defense had a really good week tackling.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, and that makes you wonder again, and it's going to be different because Ohio State has 3 of those guys, maybe more. We don't know yet because we haven't seen enough of Julian Fleming and Marvin Harrison Jr. But we already know Ohio State has Chris Olave, they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, and they have Garrett Wilson. So it's going to be a bigger test in 2 weeks. But Michigan gets to figure out how it's going to do against a prolific pass offense this week against Maryland. What are you looking forward to seeing in this game on Saturday to at least either show that maybe, because we haven't necessarily seen Michigan say, all right, we need to show what we can do against Ohio State. They have seemingly a very myopic game plan in the sense of they are looking solely at how they can beat each individual team. They're not. It isn't just a situation where Michigan's going out there and saying, like your 2016 team, you knew what you were going to get, right? You were going to get Devion Smith was going to punch you in the mouth, and then you and the receivers were just you're going to go down and you're going to catch passes downfield, and you're going to get teams were going to get bludgeoned, and before they knew it, they're going to be down 21-0. This team's a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
There's games where there's the pass, there's the run. With that in mind, what are you looking forward to seeing against Maryland that maybe would give you the confidence to say Michigan can actually get over the hump against the Buckeyes the following week?
Yeah, so I think last week was a very emotional win. It was a big road win. Sometimes when that happens, you can sleepwalk. It takes you, normally you got to flip the switch. You celebrate Saturday night and it's back to work on Monday. But when you have a bigger win, an emotional win, and then you kind of have this in-between game, everybody knows Ohio State's coming up the following week. Can we stay focused? I look at this almost like as a military invading your village. They need to come in there and just burn down the houses, knock the front line back and plant their flag like this is our house. Like this should be a clean win. They should go in there and be dominant. You want this to be a blowout. You want to get your guys in and get them out, or midway through the third quarter, understanding that the next week's is the big one. So that starts with starting fast, which we did not do this week. We did not start fast. I'd love for us to start fast and just put out a complete performance offensively, defensively, and on special teams. Just a collective unit. And that'll just give you confidence in the next week that, hey, we are playing our best ball as we're entering the biggest game of the season.
It's funny because there was like a sacrifice here. Didn't start fast for pretty much the first time all year, but threw touchdowns all 3 times that they were, and not even in the red zone. Actually, only technically one was in the red zone. One was at 21 yards. The other one was obviously on the goal line. I didn't even see it because I had my camera up to my face, and I'm on the line of scrimmage because I'm like, I'm going to get this shot of Hassan Haskins getting the ball and going in, and then ends up being a play action and getting it to Roman Wilson in the end zone. But no Jake Moody. We didn't have to see any Jake Moody. Jake. So, but sorry to your namesake. didn't get to kick any field goals or attempt it. Nonetheless. All right, final thoughts from you, Jake, on this game. What else are you excited about, and what are you looking forward to?
Well, it's a great win. As we talked about, as Penn State's one of the toughest places to go in and get a win. James Franklin and Jim Harbaugh, they've been back and forth their entire careers. I think this was a big win for Coach Harbaugh. And just seeing the way he speaks about this team, the way he speaks about his coaches, the energy he's carried this season, I think he's really taken a big step back to Coach Harbaugh that I remember when he first took the building. He seems to have found another spark and a love for the game. And of course, as the head coach, you're as much of a CEO as you are a coach. That's going to trickle down throughout the program. So when he's happy and feeling good and representing this program the way that he has been this season, it's only going to trickle down. So I just want to give credit to Coach Harbaugh and what he's been able to do, and staying true to the process. Staying true to the process. Of course, as we've talked about, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of, Michigan fans, some of them, not all of them, are quick to call for change and quick to, really come at people's heads. So the hardest thing to do is just not make any changes and say, no, we are doing this the right way. We are trusting the process. We're going to stay steady, and it's going to lead to victories, which it has. So really just a lot of credit to Coach Harbaugh and the coaching staff, and I love watching this team play. The guys are playing with such passion and love for the game. It's contagious.
And this was the first time since 2015 at the game at Happy Valley that I saw Jim Harbaugh really go off on the refs the way that he did. So, and it was something that was well deserved. And missed block in the back, which it was one of those ones before I even saw Harbaugh. I'm looking for the flag because I'm seeing the block in the back happen right in front of me on Jahan Dotson that on the punt return, and there was another one. I think it was a missed pass interference call. Where Andrell Anthony couldn't get away. He was trying to get there to the ball. He couldn't. He was being held. No call. Harbaugh went off both times. It reminds me of in 2015. He took off his jacket. He took off his hat and everything. It wasn't quite that emphatic, but nonetheless. All right, that's going to do it for today's in-person X's and O's. We will be back on Friday with the preview of Maryland. I will be traveling. I will be live from Washington, D.C., whereas Jake will be wherever Jake is, probably here. Or are you going somewhere this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going back to Ohio.
Back to Ohio.
Yeah, be with my family. I'm spending Thanksgiving because I got to be back here, obviously, for the big one against Ohio State.
Interesting. So
I'm gonna do some scouting. I'm going back
to
Columbus. I'm gonna put on like a fake mustache and little newspaper and try to hang around the program, see what detail I can get.
Don't make sure that the fake mustache is like the one from those pictures of like you and Henry Poggi.
Yes, you're right. Dang, I wish I didn't shave my beard now. Yeah.
All right, that'll do it until Friday. So we'll talk to you then.